Okay, so Lindsay, um, so first I want to ask you how are you feeling now about the experience you had? Like whatever comes to mind, the experience you had, the trip, and then the time with us.
I I've already been on a little bit of a journey since being home, in terms of the many different feelings. When I first came back, I felt very challenged, in the sense that I would be going through, well, one, the jet lag that took a couple days, but and I was fortunate enough that I had a weekend before I had to go to work, so I had a couple days where I could just rest a lot. Um, and not do a lot, which was I was very grateful for. But even after I went back to work a few days later, that whole following week, I was could just be anywhere, and then I would think about a moment uh, from our trip, and then I would just start crying, and and so that happened for several days. Just in any moment. It didn't not necessarily long periods, but
What you cry for, like you know what that cry was?
yeah, it could be for any all sorts of things. I think it was partly because my heart was really open. So that kind of period of expansion that can happen after deep work like this. And so just generally sensitive to both remembering like painful moments and then and remembering really beautiful poignant moments. And so one aspect that was coming up for me a lot, and I was trying to describe this to other people who had been on the trip. Um, and I was saying that it wasn't, as intense, but there was no word for it. And so the closest word I could come up with was like feelings of like survivor guilt and it wasn't that as intense as that because nobody died, but the feeling of like coming back to my life, kind of going to work, my life, at this time and point in my life being relatively one of ease in the sense that I work, I come home, there's no, I don't feel a lot of resistance to where I go, for example. And so just the freedom in that piece, I was feeling not quite guilty around, maybe isn't the right word either, but there really isn't a word for it of just like thinking about the relationships I made and the what I consider as friendships from our group, and just kind of recalling some of the details of their lives that they've described to me, um, especially when we toured the West Bank and what was conveyed to us there around like the checkpoints and the um, the rationing of water. And that just sat with me and I would just cry, just, just thinking about that being back. And then there are moments of just like the way our group processed together that was different than the way, so in some ways different the way North Americans process in the sense of, or that I've seen or from my experience in the sense of, and it's come up because I went to um, a group recently because it was already scheduled to go in San Francisco to do a group work because we're in the middle of a series, so it was like the fourth module, and it came up in that group because they were very interested to hear our experience
So it
from our
wasn't just you, as a few participants in that group also were in our group.
yes, so that group is a group of nine now. A couple people left the series, but so four of the five were from our trip. So it had a big impact in that module that I just came back from. And what came up was around, the notions of safety. It's not like a universal concept in that or that we can all agree on. And that's to be expected, obviously, because everybody's coming from their different experiences. But one thing that I brought back was just how how different the feeling of or the concept of safety and working in groups is. Like how much it felt like there was a lot of freedom to show aggression and to be in conflict, and then still, and like almost that there was uh an understanding that connection is still happening, or that there could be connection after these big displays of anger or rage, or and then come back into connection with even the same person that seemed like apparent conflict. uh to me, it just felt different than the way sometimes groups, from my experience in the US, have been, where we, I wouldn't say tiptoe around conflict, but it's just like the kind of displays of of anger and things. It's I think it can be, uh I think people tend to even hold back a little bit in
Don't bring
groups.
it all the way. You bring it, but not all the way.
And again, these could just be my judgments, but and yeah, and so but I guess what I mean by that is I was very inspired by what felt like how deep the container could hold, how much it could hold in terms of the depth of emotions that were coming to the surface, and so that inspired me. Um, yeah. So now I'm feeling, I did get sick physically, and I take that as almost like a its own signs of like, oh, what am I letting go of, or what needs to be let go of, so kind of like a purge. Um, so I have taken time for self-care and things, and so I'm feeling a little bit, I guess, more integrated than when I first came back. But I felt like I've had help, in a sense of been in community with everybody from our trip. That WhatsApp group has helped a lot for me. And then I went straight into a module. So
Okay. Um, and now I want to ask you, like, what were you thinking about the conflict? Like, this is a two-part question. It's like, what were you thinking about the conflict before you came? And what did you learn afterwards? Like, how did it, like, did it and how did it change your perspective about the conflict?
yeah, I mean, I think for me, I knew I had just some like feelings of like concern for what was happening in the Middle East and the conflict. And I know that a lot of it is colored by the way the media portrays things in the US. But in the sense of like my upbringing, and had a very Christian uh, upbringing. And so for me, I just also aware of the way that it's portrayed, even from like a religious perspective, that I've since, kind of moved away from it for my own personal spirituality, but that still is part of my history. And so that for me, that there was this um there's this piece of me that just kind of believes that that area is sacred, and something holy in that area, which is interesting, to kind of have this perspective of a part of the world I've never been. So where I'm holding that, but also a certain abstractness to that, just because I've never been, and yeah, I don't necessarily have a lot of communication with people who live in the area. So there was a certain abstractness about it, but also a certain like connection around like really caring what's happening in that part of the world, for various reasons of my history. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go. The bigger reason uh, was around the work, radical aliveness in particular. I I just when the program started a few years ago, I already felt really like excited and um I felt a real draw and support wanting to support the program. And so I did what I could in this part of the world. And so I already kind of felt invested in the group and was very excited to see what's happened over the course of a few years. And also just wanted to be there to kind of um, cheer everyone on for the last part of their modules, because I could understand how it felt going through a radical aliveness program here in the States. And so I felt connected in that way. And then when I came, excuse me, I'm still a little sick. um,
Do you need something to drink?
I do have a little, gonna, yeah, take a minute.
Is it coconut?
It's
I,
coconut.
I like to, I also drink coconut.
um, yeah, it just became so personal when I got here. And definitely part of it was the touring that we did before even coming to the module. And I know there was, all sorts of considerations around what we were exposed to. And I would say that I felt very much kind of like a blank slate, except for the piece that I've already explained around just feeling like this area is really sacred. um, but aside from that, I was mostly blank slate politically and things in terms of what I was being exposed to or hearing. And so I'm also aware that now my perspective is very influenced by, you know, what I saw, the tour, um, and and I guess what impacted me though was, I think I was already aware of just how strongly, like, historically, uh, Israel and Palestine felt about the region and their connection. So I knew that this was, I don't know, just like a very um, ingrained historical um, conflict, and that may not be shared by like necessarily, you know, modern time people. I knew that there would be a spectrum of how people felt about it, but it just felt like big in the sense of like the complexity of like history behind the perspectives that were felt tied to the land. And so I also felt like, okay, I'm I'm an outsider. I don't know a lot. So I came in, for me personally, feeling a lot of humility around just wanting to learn um, from the different perspectives and experiences. And I was really impacted um, by the tour that we had around what happened in October, and from both perspectives, and the the grief and the feelings of terror and rage and chaos of like of can connections still be possible in the midst of all this confusion, and then the way that the political propaganda on both sides, um, and and then also touring the West Bank. Again, I'm aware, very impacted by our tour guides and things, and the kind of passion they brought around their perspectives of what was happening there, how it was impacting their lives. And so I brought that all back with me, and I still feel, um, yeah, that I want to bring more awareness, from people in the West about what's happening. I don't think I necessarily came with this idea that peace is possible. I probably came away with a more muted and more uh, maybe not as a naive perspective around peace. Um, and I guess, yeah, I was just, I don't know. I think for me, though, the humanity really just struck home in a way that it didn't before. Because again, I think I had more like concepts in my brain about things that were happening, and now I just I really feel um the the complexity in my heart, and yeah, I want to know more. I want to learn more, and I definitely feel like there's more that can be done, even from the West, and I just really want everybody that I've met to feel the support that's there from the international community, however that can happen. Um, and there are places where I feel I had to feel my helplessness around what can be done, given that a lot of the things that that are happening in the States is like it's all political, and how does an individual help change the course of what the government is agenda and things. And so yeah, um but yeah, it's definitely the personal piece that I came home with.
Thank you. Wow. Yeah, it sounds like really the complexity, not like just, having a sort of a narrative or a story, just feeling the complexity of the situation.
Yeah. And I think I wasn't necessarily aware of the spectrum of perspectives that people in Israel have. I mean, even describing it in political sense of like the far left and the far right, uh, I'm sure doesn't even cover the spectrum of the way people feel about living in the region and the ties and the way that they want to be in community with others around them. So yes, I just feel like I just got like the tiniest sliver of what's is happening and the complexity there, and it does make me want to know more. Um,
And you were saying about feeling the humanity, something like that.
mm,
I want to ask you, like, this is also a question that you can take, like, wherever you want to take it. Like, what did you learn about being human, about healing, and about this work of radical aliveness in this tour with our group, our mixed group? Like, have you learned anything new about this subject?
yeah, I mean, for me, and partly because of the themes that came up in some of our group work together, I was really feeling certain universalities of experience in the way we feel about like our feelings of belonging, for example, um, and how much grief there is around not feeling like we belong or not feeling like we have a home. And I could really connect around that, and then seeing how that plays into uh what's considered conflict there. And so that's one thing I felt very much in touch with humanity in that place, and the helplessness around war and conflict, and grief around loss of connection, and um, and there's another piece that I'm sure will come back around, um, but yeah, that's certain universality in that, and again, kind of the way people were able to really take each other in, even in the midst of their own feelings of anger or grief. And I really was inspired by the courage it takes to come into rooms and spaces like that, and 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 really witness each other. Um, uh, yeah.
Mm. And how did it change you? What did you take home with you from this experience?
I mean, there are a few things I could feel my longing, funny enough. And I wasn't the only one to feel that coming back. It's I've also heard it echoed from other people coming back. Um, yeah, there I could feel some of the cultural differences in the sense of just like the way even group participants would probably, have gone over to each other's houses and know each other or has met each other's family or kids and coming back and just kind of feeling more isolated in the way that our the culture is set up in the West. Again, these are judgments that I'm having, but um, so I was really struck by that. Just a certain, I don't know, feeling of community that isn't necessarily like um, indulged or really taken care of. Um, from my experience in the West necessarily. And so that I was feeling that. So I took home that like, oh, I want more of that in my life and how can I create that for myself if it's not pre-existing and things like that. Um, and yeah, the courage to really, really be true to like like my experience or my perspective and just letting that just sit with someone or a group without having to like necessarily make it better in terms of the experience or the impact and just having more trust and taking more risks on like what'll happen and the information that can come out from that. I think yeah, is a little uh I know maybe from the western perspective a little edgier in those ways to just really be in my truth and not making it uh, more palatable for someone else, for example.
To lean in,
Yes.
like, yeah. Hmm. Um, I was thinking, like, is there anything else you want to share, like, about, we're talking now, things come up, like, is there anything else you feel like sharing or asking or saying?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am curious. Interview may not be the place for it, but I'm definitely curious. Um, how um a kind of a group of quote outsiders coming in to a process that's been going on for several years, how that impacted people and impacted the group. Um, I mean, I know from some of the things that we've heard in clips, but I felt like we kind of left at maybe the peak of a week. Like we were there 3 days, and a lot happened in those 3 days. Um, but I would have maybe enjoyed to witness like the full trajectory of that week and see where it took everyone. Um, so yeah, maybe it'd be interesting to me to get feedback on that, because there it did feel like something. I know Anne kind of used the word magical, um, and it did feel like something shifted. And one thing, maybe one thing that I heard that struck me as interesting was there were someone had mentioned that there were moments when they're, having to hold um all this information that, say, like, a Palestinian was um addressing, and then to hold everything inside, and, like, being aware of how it's potentially triggering, and then feeling like there was support from, say, a third group, that that person didn't necessarily have to hold um, all of themselves, all of the information coming from the other person, and that they could, like, maybe just uh, relax a little bit, and, like, let their defenses down a little bit more, um, because there's other people in the room who can hold what's happening, and the information coming. And so that made sense to me, that maybe that's one reason why, just around, like, the container being bigger in that sense, how that could be helpful in rooms of, like, deep um, deep emotional work, especially, with so many perspectives in the room. So yeah, yeah, I found that pretty interesting.
And I can answer you about it. I answer you some of about it in like the recording, and afterwards I can answer you more like without the recording, if you want. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Do
Cool.
you?
Yeah.
I think like what you're saying about getting the container bigger because there's a third party that is involved and he can like be the role of the listener and then and give empathy and give room. It's not what happens that it makes the container bigger is, I think, not just because that I think what it made shown that we were demanding each other to do it for one another. You know, like if you care about me, you will give my wound a place here, like a couple's fighting. And
Mm,
I think that when we got it from someplace else, we could stop demanding it from each other. I think the demand and the hurt about the other not willing, being willing to do it and realizing that from accusing each other of not wanting to do it to realizing that we are not able to do it because the demand has gone. The demand, like, if you love me, you will do it for me. If you
yeah.
care about me, you could see me there, like you insist. And I think that when another person is giving, then you can see like what you're able, what you're not able. And then you could like, if you are a third party, then you can feel your guilt and then you can feel something more than guilt. Then you can feel like relief that there is empathy there for him, not for me, but from another. So it really opened something that seemed like there's no way to open it. And once there's no demand in the air, then there is freedom to actually hear each other's pain. I think we had a lot of demand. And that's what like, and later on, like I'm going to tell you later, like it really like, like, because it's personal, so I don't want to record it, but like, I feel that there was like really a breakthrough.
That's amazing. And the way you frame that, it makes a lot of sense. How in deep conflict, when there's still the, like, unspoken demand, but it's felt, and all the, pressure involved in that, like how that can just continue to, like, accentuate and um the areas of feeling disconnected. So it's really insightful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. So this part, we'll see how we do it. Okay.